Tuesday, the 26th of February. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Mr. Kenna.
President Trevicki Bell.
Here.
Mr. Conti.
Here.
Dr. Carpenter.
Present.
Ms. Lualbo.
Here.
Mr. McCarthy.
Here.
Ms. Provenza.
Here.
Mr. Suchevich.
Here.
Mayor Recupero.
Here.
I am also here.
Thank you. Okay, council and public will now hear from Natalie from the Tri-Cod Land Bank. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. I have little packets. I don't know how you guys want me to distribute them. So I will hand these out really quick. So my name's Natalie Boydston. I'm with the Tri-Cod Land Bank. I'm program director there. And first off, I just want to say thank you for inviting us here tonight. So I'm just going to give a brief history, a broad overview of the land bank, and then open it up for any questions that you might have for me. I'm just gonna set these back here if anyone wants them. They can. I'll just see if stacks and then we'll, I hope there's enough for everybody. If not, I can always email to anybody who wants them. Land banks are actually, land banks actually started in the 1960s, so they've actually been around for a little bit, but they're fairly new in Pennsylvania. The Land Bank Act was signed by Governor Wolf in 2012. But the conversation of blight has occurred long before that in this region. The Tri-Cog Collaborative, which it consists of the Turtle Creek Valley Cog, what was the Steel Valley Cog, and the Twin Rivers, which is now the Steel Rivers Cog, which is the other organization I work for. So that's Tri-Cog and not BICOG, if everyone wonders what's Tri-Cog Land Bank. Created the Tri-Cog Collaborative, and in 2014 they published a study about the cost of blight, and they specifically looked at their 41 member municipalities, but they also expanded that to the county. And if you look, I think it's like the 4th page in the packet, it's this one right here. So the takeaway from this is, so obviously blight has a lot of direct effects on communities. They're not contributing to the tax base. So most vacant properties aren't paying property taxes. No one's living there generally, so there was no earned income tax coming in from them either. And then also the cost of trying to collect those delinquent taxes also costs a lot of money. And then they're not contributing, and they're also taking a lot of resources away from boroughs. So the grass is really high, so code enforcement is out there citing them. And then all public works has to go and cut the grass because no one else is going to. And they also tend to have a lot of more public safety calls. There's generally more criminal activity. You have to worry about them burning down. And then there's also the possibility of them having to be demolished, which is very expensive. So there's a lot of direct costs, and there's also indirect costs. There's been a lot of studies done. In 2010, Philadelphia did a study that if you're a property owner and you're located within 200 feet from a vacant parcel, that can reduce your property value by 8.6 to 16.5%. So you could keep your property in great condition, but it still reduces the market value of your property. And there's another study that said that for middle income individuals, generally your equity is either in your property or your retirement. The most is in your property. So that really affects individuals in the community as well. So there's direct and indirect effects of blight. And so this diagram is from that study, and the main takeaway is that, so they did a 150-foot buffer around blighted vacant properties in Allegheny County. Almost a quarter of Allegheny County residents are affected by blight. A quarter. And the number, back on my water, the number at the top is found that the blight cost the county almost $1.3 billion in lost property values. And then collectively, with school districts, municipalities, and Allegheny County lose about $42.2 million in property tax revenue because of lower property values. So I know a lot of people are aware of the effects of blight, but those are just some kind of numbers. And I know the numbers are a little old, but they're still pretty relevant today. So there comes in the Tri-Cog Land Bank. So we were established in 2017. We spent most of that year creating governance and bylaws and policies and procedures and starting to work on our property acquisition and what that looked like. And then just, I guess, a key takeaway for people that aren't sure what land banks are, one of the main tools that land banks have are the ability to discharge public property taxes. Or property liens, excuse me. So that's kind of like the main tool that when people, we have other tools, but that's kind of the main thing people think of when they think of land banks. So fast forward, May of 2018, we acquired our first 2 properties, a row home in East Pittsburgh and a vacant lot in Edgewood. February 2019, we now own 18 properties. 15 of those are properties with structures. We have 2 side lots and a vacant lot. And those are actually spread throughout our membership. And if you want to look at the second page of your packet, there is a little membership map. So right now, we have 22 member municipalities. Blawnox actually entered in 2019. They were our first new member. We were very excited about that. There are 6 school districts in Allegheny County. And so what does it look like to be a member? So there's 3 financial contributions from members, and then there's an additional eligibility. But if you look at the front of the packet, I know I'm like making you write this little packets all the time, but it says sustainable financing strategy. And that strategy actually helped us leverage $1.5 million in foundation support. So it really helped us get off the ground. So part of being a member is that all 3 taxing bodies have to be part of the land bank. And that's because when we acquire a property, the public taxes need to be discharged on that property, and that's why all 3 have to be. So we already have the county on board, so it's just the municipalities and school districts. The other part is that after we acquire a property and sell it, for 5 years, we share 50% of the property taxes on that property with the taxing body. 6th year, we're not involved anymore, but for those 5 years, we share 50%. And then there's also an annual contribution, which I apologize, but I'm going to read straight from my notes because whenever I say it, I confuse myself and then I confuse everybody else. So the annual contribution is, for instance, for the year 2019, members pay an amount equal to 5% of the 2017 delinquent real estate tax principal collected in 2018. So that can vary. I think one of our members pays under $100. Most of them pay a few thousand. So that just kind of gives you an idea. And for instance, also, if let's say Verona and Riverside were part of the land bank, but Oakmont was like, we're not quite ready yet. Riverside would only be responsible for the delinquent taxes collected in Verona and not Oakmont. So it's just with whatever members are part of the land bank. And then the other key point is that members have to appoint a delegate and an alternate to sit on our advisory committee. And so we have our governance structure, and we kind of have a unique governance structure. So we have a limited board due to the Land Bank Act, so we have a 9-member board, but we want to make sure that all of our members are heard. And so that's what the advisory committee is for. So we have a municipal advisory committee and a school district advisory committee. Currently, they meet at the same time. We meet every other month. The schedule is actually on the back of the packet in case anyone ever wants to swing by and sit in. The advisory committees help us make changes in policies, decisions. They help us choose which properties we're going to acquire, or how we're going to sell the property. So they're really integral to the process. They also elect our board. And our board is 2 municipal representatives, 2 school district representatives. The Allegheny County Executive appoints a member. We have a residential representative, and then 3 professional representatives. And right now, our professional representatives are, we have a lawyer in economic development, he owns his own economic development, and then Debbie Grass, she kind of wears a lot of hats, she does finance and economic development. So that's through the board structure. Now, a lot of people want to know, how do we acquire properties? What does that look like? How do we choose? And right now, our members actually submit the properties to us that they're interested in us taking. So we do it in 2 cohorts, one in the spring, one in the fall. And for the reason for that is we're really small staff, so it just helps us manage the properties a little bit better. April 30th, we'll get all the properties in for the spring. We will then put that into we have a property management system called E Plus. Then we actually go out to each member community and talk with them about the properties, because communities know their properties the best. They know the history, they know how long it's been vacant, so they can give us a lot of valuable information. And you learn a lot of really interesting things too. And then we go as staff and go visit the properties as well, just to get kind of a first look, take a photo. After that, we work with Turtle Creek Valley code enforcement officers, so we have like a consistent exterior property assessment on the properties. So we're not legally allowed in the properties, that's trespassing. So we try to guess the integrity of the structure by the exterior. We have been able to get inside some of the properties when we have landowner permission, but most of them that's not the case. So we assess the best we can. Obviously, if there's we call it a natural skylight, there's a huge gaping hole in the roof, there's probably water damage, there's probably some structural issues, as opposed to, flaking paint on the front door. Not quite as big of an issue. We then score the properties. So we try to make this as objective as possible. So we look at market value analysis, which was done by Allegheny County and the Reinvestment Fund in 2016. So where the property lies within that. We put in the exterior property assessment, acquisition ease, so is it a donation? Is it going to go through tax sale? What does that look like? Disposition ease, has anyone shown interest in the property? Amount of blight in the neighborhood. Is this just a really stable street with one property that needs to be attended to, or is it a street with multiple blighted houses that might need a little bit larger of a plan? Then also, is it near a community asset? Is it near a playground, a park? Is it really visible in the community? Is it through a major thoroughfare? Is it right in between your residential and commercial district? Also, is it part of a larger project? Are we already working on that street? Is a CDC working on that street, or another nonprofit working on that street? And then we take all the scoring, and then we get title searches with our solicitors to see what the title looks like. And then they advise us. And we take all of this information with our recommendations to the advisory committee. And then the advisory committee will either say, yeah, we like those properties, or no, or table them, but if they say yes, we take them to the board. And then the board votes. And if they vote yes, then we send 60-day notices out. And what those 60-day notices are, we send them to each of the 3 taxing bodies where the property is located. And if for some reason one of the communities objects to us taking the property by a super majority, we won't take it. We can't take it. So it's just, so far, we've never had any issues so far, because mostly the members are submitting the properties to us. But if that's ever a concern, there's also that in there as well. And we've been working with our solicitors to try to maybe speed up that 60-day notice if there's a potential donation, or there's a reason we should look at trying to take a property a little faster. So we do have written into the 60-day notice that if there's do not object, if we get do not object letters from all 3 taxing bodies, we can take the property a little faster. But basically, if we don't get a response within 60 days, we assume it's a do not object, and then we talk with our lawyers about the best way to proceed, which generally is sheriff's sale. All the properties we own right now are through sheriff's sale. We are working on 1 donation in Monroeville, and we have 2 other donations that are potentials that we're working with right now. So that's kind of what the acquisition process looks like. And then a lot of the next question normally comes is, how many properties do you have for sale? We don't have any for sale yet. And there's a really good reason for that. So we could sell our properties right now as is where is. Buyer beware. But we decide as an organization that we want to make sure that we have title insurance on these properties. And that's to protect the new buyer, the new owner, from any liabilities that weren't realized during sheriff's sale. And that takes another legal action called quiet title. And we're the first in Allegheny County to kind of land bank to work through this process. So it's going a little slower because we're working with private title insurance companies. So we're hoping that once we get this first batch through, it'll streamline. So we're probably about 3 months out before we have a property for sale. But in the meantime, we're working on our disposition procedures, our applications, and what that looks like. Because our properties that we own, some we might rehab ourselves, some we might fix up a little bit and then sell with a list for the new buyer to fix up, and then some we might just sell as is and then have a list of things the new buyer has to fix in order to purchase the property. So I have a few commonly asked questions that I was going to go over because I'm anticipating these. One of the questions that we're often asked is, taxing bodies can take properties through sheriff sale themselves. So, like, what's the benefit of a land bank? One of that is more control over the end result. So when a property goes through sheriff sale, you don't know who's gonna get the property. It could be a really responsible developer, a single family who wants to live in the property, or it also could be somebody who puts a coat of paint on it and then rents it out until it falls apart. You don't know. Land banks have the ability it's called a priority bid. So when we're at sheriff sale, nobody can bid against us. So if we take a property through sheriff sale, we're gonna get that property. And then we also have eligibilities written into our policies and procedures. So if individuals cannot purchase a property that are tax delinquent, they can't purchase a property if they have unremediated code violations elsewhere on their other properties. If they own a property with a history of criminal activity, they can't own a land bank property. And it also must comply with the community zoning and comprehensive plan. So, if somebody really wants this large single-family house and they want to break it up and make it a multifamily, but it's against your zoning, they can't do it. It has to be single-family. And of course, we're open to listening to variances, but we do have to stay within the zoning. And the other benefit is the disposition goes, so when we're about ready to sell a property, it goes through the advisory committee, which every member is part of. It also goes to the board, and then 60-day notices are also sent for disposition as well. And then the other really cool thing is, so we acquired a property in Wilkins, and I was talking to the borough manager about it, and she let me know that the property next door was slated for demolition at some point. And I was like, if you guys demolish it, do you want us to take the vacant lot? And then we can just reverse subdivide and have a property with a really large yard, because otherwise there's not a lot of new construction in this area, so otherwise it's just gonna be a vacant lot that sits there. So we're actually working with them right now on that. And then another one of our boroughs, the borough is working with a family to try to get the property donated. They just can't care for it anymore. And when we were meeting with the homeowner, we're like, oh, your yard is so big. And she's like, actually, this was a house that burned down and was demolished, and this is just a vacant lot, I'm not sure. And so we went back and looked, and both of those properties next to her are tax liens. I have tons of tax liens. I think like the last owner, one of them was like known in like it was like sold in 1906. So we're actually looking, if we're gonna get this property donated, then we're gonna take these side lots too, because that makes sense. So I think that's another benefit of being part of the land bank. And then the other tricky question we often get is the footprint of the land bank is really large. There's a lot of members. Is there a chance that we might not get a property acquired by the land bank for a few years? And the answer to that is yes. There is a chance that you might be part of the land bank, and for a few years we might not acquire a property in your jurisdiction. But maybe there's a neighborhood in one community where we're really trying to focus on to stabilize a neighborhood. But part of that is that decision has to go through the advisory committee, which goes through each member. So as a member of the land bank, you would be making that decision as well to focus on that neighborhood. Also, as part of that, we have 5 of our current members, not counting Blonox because they're new, so they haven't submitted properties yet, that we have not acquired a property and we are not in the process of acquiring our property for at this time. 2 of them never submitted properties to us, and then 3 did, and we didn't take them for various reasons. The next cohort is set for April 30th. We've already met with 3 of those communities, and we're meeting with the other 2 next week to try to devise a strategy for them. And what comes with that is, I included 2 maps in the packet, and this is just public data that's available. So I did one of Verona, and I knew Ken Hill was here, so I threw in a map with that too as well. So this is just publicly available data, total tax lien, and these are just for residential parcels with structures. And so this kind of gives you a visual on it's just really helpful to see where there's a lot of tax delinquency or liens. And not all of these are vacant properties. Land Bank will only take vacant properties, but generally if there's certain trends to that data that can kind of help us look and see. And we're huge data nerds, so like so we love to map things, and we like to do deep dives into tax liens. So and when we bring these maps, we also bring one on liens with vacant lots, sheriff sale information. We also have the ability to, we can talk about also other tools that we can use. The Land Bank hasn't done a conservatorship, it's just another tool, and we're really interested in trying one. We also can talk about donations, about potential donations, and then also if you have your own internal data for like property delinquency or code violations and you'd like us to map them, we can map that as well. So although maybe, it might be 1 year you don't get any properties, we still want to make sure that all of our members feel like they're definitely getting something out of being part of the Land Bank, and we definitely have other tools to show that. And then just a last note, so the Land Bank is one tool to be used with other tools. So we're not join the Land Bank and blight will be fixed overnight. We really believe in working with other tools that you have, code enforcement, occupancy permits, other organizations that do work also in the community. So we're definitely a useful tool to fight blight, but we are one tool. And then we're also really interested in partnerships. So we have a partnership with Rebuilding Together Pittsburgh and Braddock Hills. They're helping us with 2 of our properties that we own there. We're also talking with NeighborWorks about financial literacy classes and education. So we want to make sure that our buyers are as ready to purchase a house as possible, within our capacity. So that's kind of our conversation with them, because we're hoping that Land Bank is potentially a place for first-time homeowners to start building equities. And then we've also had discussions with Construction Junction to salvage usable material from our properties. There's a conversation about lead in the county, and we're working with a consulting firm and then Allegheny Conservation District to do lead testing on one of the properties we're going to demolish before and after. So although our main tool is to acquire properties and then bring them back to productive reuse, we also do try to be really involved with the community and make a big impact. So I think that's all I have, and if you have any questions, if I'm not sure, I will give you Ann's email, so I think I can check it.
Natalie, I just want to real quickly introduce Mark Stanton. He's our code enforcement officer. In the back there's John Petrucci. They were interested from Penn Hills. He's on Penn Hills Council. Tom Benecki was supposed to be here, but I don't know what happened because he's been pushing this with a lot of communities. He's told me, and that's why he wanted to be here, but something must have come up. And we have Nick Vitulis from County Council. He's our representative in the area. I just wanted to acknowledge them for being here.
Thank you for being here.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How do you handle other encumbrances on a property, mortgage or some type of private lien?
We work with our solicitors, so that's what the title searches are for. And a lot of times we've had our solicitors will often contact and see if they're going to have any, it's part of giving service. That's a little legalese for me, so it gets I'm not great at talking about it, but we do work with our solicitors to make sure that when normally we've had one that had a lien on it, and I think we worked with the bank and they said they weren't interested anymore, but through the sheriff sale process, that kind of gets resolved. And if we're doing donations, it's case by case, but generally the our general rule is the property can't have a mortgage on it or any private lien, it's just public liens.
But all the tax bodies have to be in agreement,
Yeah.
or else it can't work.
Yeah, because we can't negotiate with one, like, oh, well, we can't really pay the school, or the school district taxes or the municipal taxes if one doesn't want to be on it, so yeah.
Okay.
As far as the costs, so it says here, tax discharge, which means we walk away from any taxes that are owed on the property. 50% tax recapture for 5 years. So once the property is sold, you get half the tax collection for 5 years. Plus 5% of the entire borough's delinquent for the prior year.
Delinquent taxes collected from the prior year, yeah.
From the prior year. Now, if 3 years goes by and you don't buy something, we're paying that as being part of it.
Yep.
And then the last question, as far as costs go, with the cost of doing a sheriff's sale, is that on the borough as well?
Nope, that's the, whatever you pay, whatever those are is what you pay. So we take care of, and that's part of the contribution. The sheriff's sales are not cheap.
Right.
They cost around $5,000 for
Right.
each property. And so that financing structure, so there's no, in the land bank, there's no like way of financing. So that's how we maintain, how we keep sustainable.
Okay, so we pay this, and then we don't have to pay any sheriff's sale costs or anything
Nope,
like
that's
that? Okay, thank you.
You said there's a fee for us to have you come in?
Well, that's the taxes, I
That's this
believe.
That's this part right here.
Yeah, that's what I just asked about.
What's that, 5%?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
that's the annual fee. The other ones are just
I
based on the
misunderstood.
properties we
Are you guys a private entity,
No, we're like quasi-public nonprofit.
public nonprofit? So how are you sustained financially, other than by these fees from your members?
The fees by the members, we also, any money we make, some properties, we're gonna try to break even on all of our properties at least. We're hoping that some will make money on, some will probably lose some money on, depending. So money we make on the properties we'll also be able to reinvest. And we do have a little bit over $1.5 million in foundation supporting it, but but the finance strategy is to try to keep us sustainable. So we make all of our decisions are data driven, and it's to try to make the best decisions to help us financially be stable.
And from what I understand, Nick, the county is on board on this 100%. Yeah,
Any taxing body would be to get back on a tax roll.
I think and you would know more than anybody, the school districts sometimes are the ones that may hold back.
I mean, I think sometimes school districts have a higher tax, so forgiving those, I think, can be a little bit harder. And then also, I think municipalities also tend to see the direct costs of blight a little bit more in terms of the public safety and the public works going out to the properties. But I mean, it's beneficial for all, because as soon as you get a new family who's paying taxes and everybody, because most of those taxes, maybe they could go through sheriff's sale and get, that way, but at the same time, you don't know who's going to be purchasing the property, and it could kind of go back into the same state.
Yeah, I've dealt with the school district years ago before I built my building, and they just were real tough on giving the property up for back taxes. If I owe you $1, you're not getting it from me, so he might as well get it, and he's gonna pay you $3 now because he's improving the property. I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah, I mean, we're willing to go talk, if the school district wants us to come talk to them, we would be happy to go talk to them as well.
If we were to go on board with you, you have, I guess, a lot of people. Is it ahead of you? We would not be immediately, you wouldn't be dealing with us immediately on properties or buildings here?
No, so it's, we have to vote, the board has to vote in before the third quarter of the year, so I'd have to look, sorry, we've only had one new member, so. And then you wouldn't, like, if you were to join this year, or if you were to start the process, you wouldn't technically join until 2020. And then right now, just how we're doing properties, we're just doing it in the cohorts. So communities can submit properties at any time, but we're only really looking at them starting in, like, the first one would be like spring, which is April, when you submit properties. But as soon as you're members, then we'll start. And we're actually meeting with Verona Thursday to discuss strategy with them to what properties they might want to submit to us. So, yeah, we can bring those maps, which is still helpful to look at, and talk about different strategies. Because some communities like the idea of conservatorship, which is kind of, you don't own the property, but it's kind of a long thing with that. But yeah, we can, donations and that kind of thing.
Thank you.
Is the tax recapture for 5 years on the property that you turn around and then gets resold? So that wouldn't start until someone new would actually own the new property?
Yep, we're tax exempt, so while we own the property, we're tax exempt, but when we sell the property, then it starts. But then 6th year, we're not involved with it anymore.
Okay, but we still would be paying, the 5% of the delinquent real estate is all the delinquent real estate taxes that we collect?
Yeah, that's kind of, so right now, 2019, we're asking the members to pay 5% of, it's the face value of the delinquent taxes from 2017 collected in 2018.
Okay, for the entire borough or whatever?
Yep, for borough, yeah. But if, like, for school districts, if they only had one municipality in it, then they would only be paying for that one, the jurisdiction of that one municipality. They wouldn't be paying for other municipalities that weren't members.
So if you buy a vacant lot, let's say, then is your goal generally to put a house up in every property? I mean, is that what you're doing? You're putting a single dwelling home on every property that you purchase?
That's right. So vacant lots are actually, and vacant land are a really interesting conversation, and it's kind of a bigger conversation that we're actually starting to have. Because also, even in terms of demolition, we're not really at this time looking for properties to demolish. We want to try to get those properties that still have good structures that we can rehab and flip and put families back in. This area doesn't like many areas of Allegheny County doesn't have a whole lot of new construction. And you know, there's also existing housing stock that we don't want to put up a house and then you're just leaving another vacant property somewhere else. So we're starting to really have that conversation about vacant land, what that looks like. We've been talking with some other nonprofits about, you know, maybe the land bank can hold the property and we can have a community garden or some kind of stormwater capture, or and it might not be in perpetuity. Maybe it's just until you know, there's interest in somebody building on land, but bringing some asset to the community, maybe not putting a property on it. But that is kind of a bigger conversation with vacant land that we're actually currently having. What do we do with all those properties that are going to be demolished too in some of the communities?
Parking lots?
Yeah, I mean, what, you know, so, and I think that's also discussing, so although we are regional and we see ourselves as a cohesive organization, we realize that each community has individual ideas of what would help them, and we definitely are interested in, we definitely want to incorporate that into our plan.
So your services don't include demolition?
They can, but that's not our focus. So we acquired a property, we're working with Rebuilding Together Pittsburgh and Braddock Hills, and we acquired this property, and it was very overgrown, but it looked like it was gonna be a good one, like structurally sound. We're gonna get in there, and it was gonna be like the shining star. It was a hoarding house that held moisture. So it's coming down. And so that property, we're actually looking at options to either, one, you know, do the adjacent owners, are they interested in expanding their yard? That's one option. The other option is, just in this case, and it's not going to be, all cases, but maybe putting a, I always forget the name of them, when you bring in the house.
Modular.
Yeah, bringing in an affordable modular home.
Eco-craft type of house.
I think we're thinking about working with with another nonprofit and kind of creating that, so that, because with working with Rebuilding Together Pittsburgh, the new owners have to meet a certain AMI, annual median income, or average median income. Sorry, I'm throwing acronyms out. So that's kind of like, that one's just kind of a special case basis. But we realize that some of the properties, we can't get in all of them. And you think, there's another property that we acquired that we're like, this looks pretty good. And it has a natural skylight, probably bigger than me. So, so that there is and then it's, once we get those, it's, okay, what's the strategy now? So those are kind of case by case, but we're not, at this time, actively going for properties that we're gonna demolish, because we want there to be a plan for that. We just don't want, all of a sudden, now there's a vacant lot that we're just mowing. That doesn't really add anything to the community either. So is there a community group who might wanna put a garden on it or something like that? That's definitely something we can talk about.
Is your vision to expand, to get more and more members, and then expand your staff and expand the number of houses that you can overturn down the line?
Yeah, we're really new, like established in 2017,
Yeah.
and we're kind of just figuring out the waters right now, but definitely.
Yeah.
And that's part of the conversations with other nonprofits about, what are the possibilities we can have. Right now, let's focus on what we can do now, but, also think about the future as well.
Thank you.
My question was,
I have a question for you. Are we allowed to ask questions?
Yeah.
Allowed to ask? Just a question. Let's assume you have a house that, in Verona. Parents have passed away. The owners live in another state. They're delinquent on taxes, but they're still the owner. How do you acquire the house from somebody? Do you have to get an agreement with them? Or all the taxing bodies along with them? How does that work?
One of the options is you get an agreement with them if they're interested if they're tax delinquent and they don't want the property anymore, and have a conversation and see if they'll donate it. The other is you can take it through tax sale. You can just take it through sheriff's sale. If there's liens on it, that's the...
Unless they pay for it.
Yeah, well, and then if they pay for it, but in that case, then the taxes get collected, so at least that's...
Well, when it goes to sheriff's sale, the people that own the house have first right?
They can, I'm not sure exactly how, but they can pay what's owed on it, and it'll, but then some of the taxing bodies will recoup some of their taxes on that, so that's a benefit. And so hopefully they'll then start to take care of it because they put money into it.
Are there a lot of homes in Verona that are vacant with delinquent taxes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Are there?
Yeah. And we have a few, like you just said, the people who own it are out of state.
That's very common in a lot of communities.
So that's something to consider.
What's the 150-foot buffer?
So there's been a lot of studies done, Philadelphia did a study where they noticed that within 200 feet, the market value of like a neighbor would be lowered by, I think it was like 8.6 to 16%. And then there's been other studies that have had different buffers around, but it's how far away that blighted property affects neighboring properties. And it can really reduce the market rate of, if you have a house and there's a house that's fallen apart next to you, it doesn't look so nice, and so it can really affect the market value of your property.
And how many of the neighborhood communities that you go to have properties who have liens on them that are actually occupied? Do you actually aggressively go to whether they're rented or owned?
We won't, if we find out the property is occupied, we stop. There's probably going to be a case where at one time that might happen, but our intention is not to, our intention is to go after properties that are vacant. We are not looking for inhabited
And
properties.
it's both, it's residential, commercial, and mixed use, or is it only residential?
Right now, our focus is residential, but we're actually working on a commercial property in Swissvale. It's an old dry cleaner, so it's a brownfield, so the borough's been really involved with trying to get that. And so we're working with them, but we can do commercial. Our focus currently is residential, but we can definitely do commercial, especially if there's like an end use and mixed use.
And have you partnered with any utilities to expedite waiving costs to move anything quicker?
Like in terms of like,
Power companies, water, sewer authorities, anything like that where you can help the process? Have you partnered with any other utilities?
we haven't, there's not really, I guess no would be the short answer. There hasn't been really any, with some of the, we have worked with some of like the authorities, like water authorities, because they're not part, we have an intergovernmental cooperation agreement that discharges the liens. The authorities aren't like, aren't part of that intergovernmental cooperation agreement. But so far we've been really successful in working with them to have those liens discharged.
I understood what you were saying about the non-demolition, that you're not really in favor of that, and I understand your point. What if the house is so deplorable that it has to come down? For instance, if it were in this town, are we, as a municipality, responsible to pay for that demolition? How would that work?
Like if there was like an end use plan, we would definitely, the land bank would definitely work with the borough to talk about that property. I think it would be a specific case property. And some, the land bank might just not have the capacity to take that property at this time. But if there is, you know, an end use or we acquire it and all of a sudden we realize, then we kind of look at it case by case basis. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I wasn't sure about answering yours.
Any other questions?
I'll ask one more. In your decision-making about which properties you're going to pick, is there, do you say, well, you know, we haven't done one in Penn Hills for a while, so we'll go there, or Penn Hills has more, so we're going to do a certain percentage for each municipality? How do you decide, like, how is it fair so that if we're a new member with Blawnox and then, you know, it's 2025 and you still haven't picked any of our properties and we've been paying in for 5 years, how do you make that equitable?
Right now, I mean, since we're so new, we have a variety of different market values, members with different market values within our membership.
Here's how the markets did.
So we have kind of a budget figured out. So we're not necessarily taking always the properties that we're in our decision making, we're trying to make sure that if we're taking properties where there's a potential we might lose money on or really close break even, we're trying not to lose money on any property, but it's gonna happen. We're trying to balance it with properties that we can make up, so we can make money on. So there's not really any percent of what properties we're taking in what areas or who gets what. And I think part of that is with, you know, I will say that we have, I mean, so 21 municipalities, not counting Blawnox because they just entered, you know, we do have properties or in the process of acquiring properties in 16 of the members. So, I mean, we definitely want members to feel valued and feel like they're part of Land Bank, but part of the being on the advisory committee is that we look at the houses and we bring all the information, but the advisory committee is voting on, yes, if we should send these to the board for acquisition or not. So if we didn't, you'd still be part of that conversation. But I mean, we definitely want all members to feel valued, but there is a chance that could happen. But then hopefully we're also bringing in, you know, like I said, we're very data driven, so we can help with mapping. We can also look at other tools that we could utilize within your community as well.
You have another question back.
Oh.
seems like a good idea off the top, but I wonder why do we have so many blighted properties? That's the answer, not to, I mean, this would really help, I agree.
Why do we have
What's
to?
causing the damn blighted
Oh,
situation?
that's a really long
You
story.
don't solve that, it's just gonna.
Yeah.
You're gonna be right back where you started.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what, but a lot of it's from when the steel industry left, and then just disinvestment in the community, and a lot of population leaving, and infrastructure already in place, and no one to fill that infrastructure. So it's just, I mean, it's pervasive throughout the whole region. So I mean, I think it's, now that it's there, now we just have to address it, because it's there.
So you feel that you'll have the people that go after these deals, they haven't left the neighborhoods, or where they, how do you set it up? Do you have an advertising like a real estate?
So we work with GRB, the solicitor we work with, and they have a whole legal process before they take it through sheriff's sale, and part of that is giving notice. And that's not really my expertise, that's kind of what the legal do, but like that's the whole process they work through before it goes through sheriff's sale.
I mean, how many years does it take to get be blighted, you know? I don't know how they.
I mean, it depends on the condition of the house and, if a tree falls on it, or if it's sealed. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different.
So they have to reach a certain level and they're.
I mean, I think blight doesn't have like a specific definition. I think everyone kind of sees it as that house they, walk by in the neighborhood that's always overgrown. So it's kind of, I think but generally it's, vacant, abandoned, and most often, it's very often the tax owner.
And what was the procedure with empty lots again? I didn't hear all.
For vacant lots?
Vacant, yeah.
Well, there's a couple different, we're having conversations about that, because it's kind of it's hand in hand with demolition. So if you demolish a property, now you have a vacant lot. Now what? Because
I live right next to one.
Yeah, so if no, a lot of times either the neighbors are mowing the grass or the borough has to go out and mow the grass. So it's what does that what is the plan for these vacant lots? Can you, is an adjacent landowner interested in expanding their lawn and acquiring that side lot and then taking care of it? Maybe not, some are. So that's kind of or maybe is there a neighborhood group who's interested in putting a garden on it, which, might not necessarily help add to the tax base, but could really add to the community.
And the fire department come out.
Yeah. So there's those options too. So it's definitely, it's a big question.
Yeah, like I said, I live right next to
Yep.
it.
Yeah.
And it can be really hairy.
Yeah. Yep.
Sheds are left on the property, I had to go and close the door.
Yeah. And sometimes people dump on them.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It really is.
Can I ask a question? Hi, I'm Carrie Del Rosso. I'm the public relations person for the borough here, but I also live over in Oakmont. I sit on their council.
Okay.
So let me ask you a question. So you fix a property, you put it up on your site. How do you, in terms of you get it sold, when does it get on the tax book? When does the borough start getting revenue from that property?
So we haven't actually sold a property, so whenever, I don't know if it's when the deed gets recorded, that's a good question, I'm not sure. That is something I can look up and get back to you on. But I'm not sure, I don't know if it's the next year but I feel like as soon as the deed gets recorded, then that's probably when, it might be a certain cutoff date though.
So there's no kind of like tip or anything that goes with this, it would stay off the tax rolls? I'm just thinking about, I work with the school as well.
Okay,
So
yeah.
the bottom line is I understand you're trying to fix the property, bring families in here, let's move it along. That would be my next question, is like, how would the school district, because I know you have to work hand in hand, I think, with the school, so how would they benefit from it as well?
I mean, they would be collecting property tax back on the property as well.
Okay.
So I think, I mean, as soon as I'm not sure what the step, but either, the deed's recorded or however the property taxes work, the next time they're owed, that's when the taxes will be captured.
And the money that you put into these properties, is this something that you expect from your entity? Are you writing grants for that? How are you getting redevelopment funding for that? How does that work?
I mean, part of it's from member contributions, and then we do have current foundation support, and I'm sure we'll be looking into grants too.
Okay, sorry to ask.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Natalie, do you have another package you could give to Carrie at the end there?
Do you have a card?
Here's one here. I don't know if
there's an extra one
I don't know if Craig needs one.
Thank you. Sorry, I should have brought a few more. Normally I have too many.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other question?
Well, that's a comment, not necessarily a question, but I think this land banking is nothing but very positive for all communities. Because if you're not there to get these homes back on the tax rolls, they will eventually implode on themselves, these older homes, and then you've lost them. And that's a serious problem here in Verona. I used the phrase one time that Verona is burning down one house at a time. And what happens is the houses are so close that they don't rebuild. Somebody uses it as their side yard. And that seems to be a problem in many communities where it's turned into vacant land or someone's side yard.
That's what I'm worried about.
What's that?
All these, they're gonna end up being bought by neighbors. They
Yeah.
just be yards.
Yeah, because
We're gonna lose all that.
I've seen in the streets of Verona where houses are sometimes 2 feet apart.
Yeah.
And when one house burns, they all go. So this is a great opportunity for you to catch these homes before they get to the point where they're unbuildable or repairable and get them back on the tax roll, because Verona has become what we call a hipster town. Everybody wants to come to Verona. It's affordable living. You can buy a nice home for as much as $100,000 to $150,000, which is affordable. You go in other communities, and you can't buy anything for $150,000. So I think it's a great opportunity here in Verona for this to develop and be positive about moving forward for the future of this community.
Could only hope if we decided to do it, that the school district would jump on board.
Absolutely, they will. Sure.
Well, you don't know about the school district sometimes.
Well, anytime they get tax dollars out of a property, they're not getting it out now.
There was a school
They
district.
can't be negative.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
What's that?
There was a school district, he stopped in real quick, he said he couldn't stay, but I gave him my packet. So hopefully, yeah, we'd be more than happy to go talk to the school districts as well, so.
They did not have, I asked them to send someone tonight as well. I'm assuming they didn't.
They did, he stopped in.
This one guy talked to me really quick, he said he couldn't stay.
Alex, yeah.
Okay. But, yeah, he did pick all the information, so.
Great. I mean, it is. It's important.
Oh, yeah, yep.
So with this, the fee that we pay, the borough is paying, so is the school district responsible for any payment or?
Same.
Oh,
Yep, they pay the same, yep. And so a lot of for some school districts,
In the county?
and the county, yeah. Yep.
All three taxing bodies pay a fee.
Yeah.
The county pays for the,
oh, I see.
within the membership though, so.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very
Thank you,
much.
Natalie.
Thanks, Natalie, thank you.
And if you have any other questions or want further follow-up, please feel free to contact me. And the executive director, she's on the front of the package. And also.
Thanks for coming down.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick. Regular meeting.
Public meeting.
Workshop.
Yeah.
No public participation.
Oh, wow, my phone went off like that. That's funny.
Because I can't.
Now we know what the market did today.
She was talking about the market.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
She was talking about the market and my phone goes off talking about the market. All right, I'll see you.
Yeah. What time?
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay. Yep, we're moving on. Okay, council will now hear comments from the public on agenda-related items.
That's all right.
Please approach the podium, clearly state your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Okay. Mr. Kenna.
I just had a couple things to talk about. An update on the website, because I'm sure we're working on it. I don't know if you noticed, the .com works now, so both sites go to it, both addresses go to it. It isn't, we're working on it. I know there's a lot of things we need to work on, but it's in process. The phones, we made a call for the phone company to come out. I guess there's some issues with it. When people are hitting certain extensions, they're not ringing, and Marcia's been having some issues. So they have us on the calendar. They're gonna come out hopefully this week and get that fixed. And that's really all I have for tonight.
Thank you.
Didn't get a state of the borough.
I didn't. I forgot to bring it. I'll email it to you.
Mr. Recupero.
I don't have nothing other than bringing Natalie in to explain about the land bank, and maybe it's something we should look into. And next month when we get, or not next month, April, when we go up to Seven Springs, I'm sure we run into a lot of people. We could talk to people up there from Sharpsburg, Monroeville, Blawnox, and get somebody, they're involved in it, Wilkins, and go from there. I mean, it's not something we need to rush into, but I think it's something we should, consider. I mean, for all these other communities, and like I said, Tom Benecki, he's in charge of the, Council of Government that you hear us talking about, the COG. He's all for it. He's been trying to get communities to join this, to put these properties back on the tax roll. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. Just a few things. I'm going to make a motion to reappoint John Tamburo to our Planning Commission. His term expired January 2019. He has a 3-year term, so I'm looking for a second to reappoint. That's myself and Mr. Conti. Are there any questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passed. Stopped in this week and saw Marcia. She had called several times about these recycle bins at the end of the Borough Building garage. They eventually did get here, but it took like 2 or 3 times for her to contact Waste Management for them to get down here and take care of the cluttered mess out there. So I think their contract is coming due, and I think we need to maybe look at other bids as well, other garbage waste management for the recycling and such, and see what they have to offer, because I mean, for her to take her time to call 2 and 3 times, and for us to also stop in and check on it, I mean, it's a waste of time when they're getting paid for that. I mean, I don't understand if it gets picked up every other week from the residents, why can't it be picked up every week?
Especially if it's at full.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. The other thing is, we had a meeting yesterday with Craig and Mark Stanton and Jerry, myself, Nancy, and can we get a 15-mile-an-hour sign out here by the park?
Yes.
Like, not the whole East Railroad Avenue, just, we talked about this.
Do you want, yeah, well, we were holding off.
Did Craig look into that?
Yeah.
Yeah, he said we can just put the sign up.
All right, do you want going both ways? And if so, it's gonna be hard to get one past south
Right.
because it's all concrete on the other side.
I would ask the chief to see where the best places would be to put it
Right.
close enough to the park. But Mark also asked if in the meantime, before these go up, if we could get like yield to pedestrian signs like Oakmont has,
Yeah.
those marquees to put out there, because, I mean, they're flying on East Railroad.
Okay.
I question them rubber things like Oakmont has for the width of the road. I just really do question that. I've seen where some towns have put signs up and painted walk across there. I don't know, I just question putting them, they're called channelizers, in the middle of the road like that, because then who's liable if somebody hits them? because that's narrow through there.
Right.
And they've been hit many times up at those,
Yeah,
you see
and
them
I
laying
think
on
that
the
street's
ground.
wider than our street.
Yeah.
That would be the only thing I would question on that.
Well, maybe the chief, maybe AJ has
So do we put signs on the side that say yield to pedestrians?
will they pay attention to those?
As soon as the weather breaks, we're gonna paint
Okay,
the crosswalks where we decide they're ready to paint them.
Okay.
Just you can't do it right now.
Right.
Everyone knows that, but as soon as the weather breaks and we can get it done, it'll be done.
okay. Was talking with a resident that lives in the 600 block of First Street at the dead end section up there past the school. And there's a lot of dumping going on up there at the dead end. A lot of TVs, 4 TVs were removed. Garbage and everything is getting thrown over the hillside. They don't know if it's people backing up and just dumping at the dead end, or if it's coming over the hill from Vogel's.
Most of it's probably coming over the hill from Vogel's Lane.
Well,
Mark has gone up there. I was in touch with the resident over the weekend. We've talked for several days, and I did go down and look at that. Mark did go up and look at the properties up there, and he is basically told, I think one of them is a rental unit. I think rental units, actually. He's looking into that too, because he doesn't think a lot of them are updated. And they're told to clean it up. And there was another one up further on, actually Peter Street, that he sent a letter to clean up also. So Mark's on top of that.
Right.
Do you want to put there used to be no dumping signs up there. Do you want, I don't know if there are still or not.
No, there's nothing up there.
That might be
Do you
a way
want,
to
you
go.
want me to get them to put no dumping and put like some sort of fine?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a standard fine, I believe. You
We're
know.
ordering dumping signs for Ridge Avenue right now.
Okay.
The big signs, no dumping, so we can just get more.
We should have one at the top and one at the bottom of the steps.
Yes, yes, yeah,
Yeah.
it's bad.
I'm sure there's some ordinance that says how much the fine is
Yes.
already in place.
Probably a standard fine.
Right, I think they're standard to like 100 to 300 or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have it on
Jerry,
record.
you'll tell them to add more to it.
Yeah, thank you. And I just need a brief exec on personnel. That just, I'm very short, we don't need to come back or anything like that. So, Mr. Conti.
And with this weather that we had over the weekend, a lot of people lost trees and stuff. Our guys are going around cleaning up as much as they can. There's some of the things they can't touch because of wires, but they're doing what they can. If somebody has stuff that's blown in the street or something, call, let somebody here know so we can get them to come and clean it up. That's basically all they've been doing since Monday,
Yeah.
or since yesterday.
Well, there's a lot.
Yeah. And he said they pretty much got a handle on it, so that's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
In regards to that, Dawn, we use up on the 600 block of south between Second and Athletic. We took the horses from Brunot and the Boulevard for this block the street
block the
off.
road.
We took them up there and blocked that off because that tree come down, that wire come down from the church.
Yeah.
I don't know if the street department got them horses back.
They know the horses are up there. I didn't look to see if they.
I know the fire department put some cones around at different places too. So if
tree
they
was-
pick them up, if they could keep them aside for us,
Yeah.
that's their
Well, they keep
cost.
it south because of the winter, so if something would happen again, as long as there's no snow on the hill, it's fine to grab them again.
Yeah,
And they
well-
were aware of it. The tree's gone, but I don't know if they got to the wires. The other day,
The wires are cut from the pole to the church. The church has no power.
okay,
The wires are wrapped up against the church. I seen it tonight,
all right.
so,
Thanks, Ray.
thank you.
Is that everything, Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. McCarthy.
Police contract is done. The police officers are getting it tomorrow, and they'll be signing it probably within a day or so.
Thank you.
That's it.
Mr. Suchovich.
The only thing I have is we met, what did we meet, Sunday? Jerry, Sandy, myself, and Mike Forbeck offered to sit down. We talked about the 904 grant and the recycle forms that needed to go into the county. And we're working on that. We each had a couple people to call to see about recycling, who recycles and whatever. Because the more tonnage, I guess, the more tonnage we can get with documentation, that makes it better for us. So, and we're looking in to see if we can do both grants, both forms at the same time, so we can get it done for the 2018 year. So that's in the works. That's getting ready to go.
Thank you.
And Mr. Forbeck's been helping us with that. So.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, Dr. Carpenter.
Yeah, has been referenced a couple times. There was an ordinance meeting yesterday afternoon. The main thing, takeaway from that meeting is that the hearings that were scheduled for March 12th, we're still having them for a property on Union Street and the property on Church Street, but we decided to add 515 East Railroad and 839 3rd Street. So there's going to be 4 hearings on March 12th instead of just 2. I don't think that they expect any problem with those hearings, or anyone coming in and being concerned about these are demolition hearings that are happening. And let's see.
Blight.
Pardon me?
More blight.
More blight.
Right. Well, trying to get rid of blight, I guess.
And the hearing's at 6:30 on the 12th.
Correct. Yeah. So hopefully we can blow through 4 hearings in a half an hour. Any other things were discussed? I think Matt is working on trying to figure out some of the water issues that are going on around town, springs and such. And we did have a discussion regarding how alcohol in the parks can happen during special events. And that seems like it's going to be a long process that we've started. So, can't think of anything else right now. That's it.
Thank you. Mrs. Lualdo.
I talked to Angela Heaney on Sunday, and she informed me that the fundraiser they had at the Eagles for the garden club was very successful. This year, they're able to purchase 40 planters for the community. Last year, they had 20, so it's double the amount. So it should reach all around the community and it'll look pretty beautiful, and like around the Eagles as well. So if we're having Tommy Gravel do the watering, he'll have double work. If we continue with the OVR kids, maybe they can, be a more productive crew this year, hopefully.
We'll have to discuss that.
And see how that goes too, but it'll be double work. I don't know too, if it's possible to have a spigot or faucet put like down by the pavilion.
It'll be,
that water line. Okay.
Yeah, he has it on his schedule.
Awesome.
That water, the water line over there, that's on the schedule for the beginning.
That way they can fill, not have to worry, get through that too. So it'll look pretty this summer. And also, just a few of the activities that'll be going on for the parks this summer. The Lower Valley Flag Football, they're going to be having their tournament on June 30th. They will be playing their flag football. League will begin March 21st and go through June 23rd every Sunday. The movies in the park this year are going to be the 3rd Fridays of the month, and it'll be June, July, and August, just for 3 months. We're thinking if it does rain, if we can bring it inside here, rather than reschedule last year. I think maybe we showed, 1 or 2 movies because of the rain, that.
I think that's a good idea.
Still continue with it. August 24th will be the wrestling tournament. The 25th of August will be a rain date, and that'll be at the Cribs, the studio wrestling. And that's all I have.
I think that's gonna catch on.
Yeah, that was pretty exciting. I missed it last summer, so hopefully I can attend it this year.
Thank you. Mrs. Provenza.
Jerry, I want to thank you for addressing, I had 2 items on here which you've addressed, and I thank you. It was the website and the phone system, so I thank you. And newsletter, the final date for that is March the 10th. So if you have any ads, any articles, please get them to us because we want to get in early so you can have your newsletter first week of April. And that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, council will now hear from the public on public-related items. Please approach the podium and clearly state your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Hi everybody, Jessica Brown, 722 Bruno. I just want to make sure that everyone in council is aware that there's a group planning a community day. We've got about, 10 different folks involved in the committee, including our mayor. And we have a date set for September 14th. We're hoping to have the event from 3 to 7 p.m. And we're looking at, a rain thunderstorm date of the 21st of September. So we're meeting again on March 14th. If anyone is interested in helping, it's going to be 6:30 p.m. we're going to meet at the Western Pennsylvania Center for the Arts in their gallery space. They have a nice spot for meetings. And kind of did a rough estimate of, what it might cost to put this on. Based on just the various ideas that people had in the room. And a lot of it is what has been done in the past, like rent the bounce house and things like that. And it looks like it would be roughly $1,400. Of course, if we didn't do as much, it wouldn't cost as much. So if council has any, I know that there's no line item, I looked in your budget, for a community event. I don't know how exactly it was paid for in the past. I think there was maybe some fundraising, or maybe there was a line item in the previous budgets. But if council members have any ideas as to how we could, help fund an event like this, I think it would be really great to, make sure it continues. And then I just have one thought that came to mind when you were talking about the dump site. I haven't seen it myself, so I don't know how bad it is, but there's a really awesome group with Allegheny Cleanways. They're called Dump Busters, and they get volunteers together and they come in and they clean up dump sites. I've worked with them in the past, and they're pretty amazing. I don't know how they pick, which sites that they're going to help, but sometimes those dump sites, it requires like special equipment, and you don't want like just anybody going down like a steep hillside or something to clean that stuff up. So I don't know how bad it is, but it could be something to look into.
What was the name of that place?
Dump Busters. It's with Allegheny Cleanways. It could be something that we could work, with the community group, because you can have some community volunteers, but then you have like some folks that are, with the group or more experienced in doing that sort of thing. And often it involves like getting a truck to haul, like we did tons of concrete, pulled it out of like a wooded area. And I think you have to really clean it up first before those signs are effective, because once somebody sees, oh, this is really cleaned up and now there's a sign here, they must mean business, versus just putting up a sign but the trash is still there.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm Joseph Warren from 562 Vogels Lane. I emailed council last week, I've spoken to the mayor in the last week. Is there a member of council that did not receive my letter?
I did not.
I did not.
Not forwarded to you guys at all? I'll go ahead and read it now then, and share some of my recent concerns in the last 6 months I've been here. I'm a new resident. This might take more than 3 minutes, so I don't know if there's anyone else who wants to go first, or if you'd like me to just read it. But I do have some very specific concerns I'd like your feedback on. So, my first concern is in December, I called 911 for vandalism. There's a swastika written on a vehicle in my neighborhood. So I reported that. The property was taken from one neighbor's yard and dropped into another between my house and my neighbor's house. I also had witnessed the resident a street down get tasered last Tuesday with the police officer. So I heard one of the 5 vehicles get hit, and I went down to the bottom of the street and witnessed all of this happen. So Three recent things in December, January, and then this past week has prompted me to ask you for your response. The first was there was an abandoned vehicle since I believe October that was ticketed with an orange sticker. It's since been moved, but I had called 911 in December because first of all, there was a swastika on the sticker that somebody had written on. Chief of Police covered it with another orange sticker. I don't know if that was brought to your attention. I thought it would be considered a hate crime. He thought it might have been kids doing vandalism. I'd err towards not. I want to see what else is going on in the community. I don't know what research was done in the background, see if there's any other graffiti. It's the only one I saw. It's in my neighborhood. I called a month later to the borough main line, non-emergency, because the vehicle had not yet been moved. I was narrowly going between two vehicles, so I had to follow up a month later. And the ticketed vehicle had flat tires, the plows were going around it, trash trucks were going around it, and I had to narrowly dodge it to go down my street when it wasn't salted after being ice or snow or whatever else. So that was now becoming a concern of mine. And then come last week, somebody actually did hit vehicles that were on the side of the road because I was woken up at 6 a.m. by a loud sound and saw our police cruiser go around the corner, then turn on KDKA, and they said there was a fire of a vehicle on 2nd and Vogel's down at the bottom of my street. So I walked down and saw that there was somebody that was, what I thought appeared to be on drugs or alcohol, come from their home and approached the police officer, and they had a confrontation. He was tased, everyone backed up. It was pretty scary. And I now have a street that's probably 60, 70 feet in front of my home from where he had his back tire just screeched through the neighborhood, and you can see where he'd gone, hit a vehicle, kept going around. So if I went down one side of my street, there's an addict. If I went down the other side of the street, there was a swastika on a abandoned vehicle recently. And then behind my property, it's blighted. And there was a piece of property that was taken from the back of that property behind me and dropped between mine and a neighbor's house. So a lot of things recently that I don't feel that people in the neighborhood should have a level of comfort having that in their neighborhood, or people that vandalize things or want to dump things on the hillside. Feel there's a level of comfort to do that. I talked to the mayor, you walked through the neighborhood recently and addressed those first two issues. I appreciate that. But more of a concern for me is your reaction to this, because I think some of these things you can be proactive with, you don't have to be reactionary to these things. So just a quick glance looking through the paperwork from the first presenter tonight, that stretch of Vogel's Lane where it starts down to where the steps are, which is a very, I have feelings towards how that's been treated, both by the borough, where it's a dump site, and the people that just treat it like their own dump site. There's $92,000 worth of liens on that stretch right there, just at a glance from the website they shared today. So again, I just want your thoughts on solutions to that. I don't want the neighborhood or the police department to be reactionary to these things. I'd rather them be proactive. One of the suggestions I had was that set of steps that go down the school to First Street, those steps need to be repainted, the debris needs to be taken out, and that's actually a dump site, if I'm correct. Is that a dump site for the borough?
No.
No.
It looks like an official dump site. There's people that back in and drop off leaves. There are vehicles that drop things off, so it's been a landing spot for years.
It's definitely not the borough guys dumping there. It's other people dumping there, whether it's residents or non-residents. And the problem with that is, if you don't catch them, what do you do?
Well, again, my suggestions are it needs to be cleaned, it needs to be lit, and there needs to be a camera. That's within walking distance from the school, and I don't know why that's not on the paving list. First Street is a mess, and that's a shortcut for a lot of people that come through town up to my part of the neighborhood. And I'm trying my best to keep our part clean, but walking through on Saturday, there's glass drug pipe I found up there. There's alcohol containers that have been dropped off, TVs that were mentioned. It's a mess. And it's not my responsibility. I don't want to wait till spring comes, we have volunteers from outside the community in orange vests clean it up. I think that should be a priority of our town. So again, my recommendations are First Street from the elementary school to the steps, that needs to be on the paving list. It needs to be a priority. I think you need to take a look at the budget if it's not already on it. It needs to be lit. I don't know how much a camera is, but it's well worth the investment so people at least don't have a level of comfort of dumping, doing drugs, or just dropping off wherever they are. I think they're all things you can address. So I would like to hear your response to this. Some of you have read the letter in advance, some have not, but I would like to hear back some of your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Dave Matlin, 722 Bruno. I don't know if anyone else has been aware or had this happened to them, but there's a company, Inspire Energy, going door to door in Verona. They are giving a lot of falsehoods, false advertising, misinformation. They're kind of demanding rather forcefully to see your electricity bill on the spot.
What's their name?
Inspire Energy, INSPIRE. They wear pink hats that say Inspire. They wouldn't show me any kind of name card or identification, which...
They came to my house and they did have an ID tag.
Yeah, they came to my house too. They didn't have a pink hat on, but they had an ID right here.
But they didn't have an ID. They didn't have any literature available, which I asked for, which I believe is against the state guidelines for energy solicitation. I mean, they were saying things like that this was an urgent matter. I opted out of something from Duquesne Light inadvertently, and that I'm going to be in trouble for this, and that I was paying taxes that were illegal.
Out of state or something.
Yeah, I checked with Duquesne Light, and this is all, I mean, it's all bogus. They're totally lying to people. I mean, I'm smart enough and cognizant enough to not get fallen for that, but I worry about people that, you know, elderly or, you know, younger, you know, teenagers or college kids that might answer the door and not know any better. And I mentioned it I reported to one of the police officers last week. He didn't seem too concerned. He said they have a solicitation permit. I don't know if there's anything that the chief or mayor or council can do, but.
Well, I'm gonna double check on that permit.
But if you
They usually do come down to get a permit. Do you know if they got a permit, Jerry?
I don't.
It's handled through my
I don't
department.
remember the officer's name, but he did say they had a solicitation permit. When I searched them on the internet, I found, I mean, there's a Trib article from a year or two ago, a town in Westmoreland County, where they had to revoke their solicitation permit because of these exact same things. So, and I talked to other neighbors who reported the same kind of experience. They really were pushy to get inside your house and see your bill.
If that's the case, and they do have a permit, maybe that should be revoked from them.
Well,
It should be told to leave
I'm
on
gonna
time.
talk, we have to talk to Craig to see if we could, you know, unfortunately eliminate all permits, you know, for solicitation, basically. There's a lot of communities you'll see no soliciting within borough limits. Now, political solicitation, you can't do nothing about.
Right.
Especially if they're trying to push into your house.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I said, look, this isn't a good time. Can you come back later? He said, no, this is an urgent matter. Like, can you get your bill right now? And I said, I don't have a paper bill available. And I said, oh, we'll wait for you to pull it up. Like, can you come in and see it? And I said, no.
How recently?
This was,
This week.
This was
This
a
week
week.
at my place.
it was two Sundays ago.
It was cold. I know it was
Beginning of
cold.
last
because-
week. Yeah.
Two gentlemen came to my house,
Yeah.
probably, I don't know, maybe Wednesday or Thursday of last week. I had my coat on, I was going out, when I answered the door and they said, is this a bad time? And I said, yeah. They said, okay, we'll be back. And I mean, like, it was that fast. They were
Yeah,
gone.
this was a guy and a girl. It was, I mean, completely different. I talked to someone, I forget who I talked to. Someone told me the other day that they came to their house and they were leaving, but just like you, and they said, oh, well, no, this is urgent. You need to address this right away.
Yeah, the two gentlemen, I mean, they were very polite, very,
The claims they made to me, I knew were totally bogus. I questioned them on it, and they just tried to re-explain it. So I don't know what the process is for revoking their solicitation permit. I think that that's possible.
David, are you going to check with Craig?
I'm checking with the chief,
Yeah.
just to double check on that permit. But yeah, I'll check with our solicitor.
I mean, I don't know, overall, like you said, eliminating solicitation altogether, I'm not necessarily asking for that, maybe that needs to be looked at.
And you hate to do that because there are,
But I just know this company has, I mean, if you look at the Better Business Bureau, they have a lot of complaints of the same thing. I mean, if you look Inspire Energy scam and you see every hit that comes up is
Okay.
kind of disturbing. So I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to make you all aware.
And actually, real quick, I'm going to see if we can't, if you come in for a permit, allow 28 or 48 hours so we can check the company out before we issue a permit. I'm going to ask, Craig on.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
just something to look into. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, soliciting, if you would eliminate that, just an example, would that mean the Girl Scouts aren't allowed
Well,
to
see,
go
that's the
around
thing, yeah.
and sell cookies?
Right, but
I want this
They don't
Girl
do that
Scout-
anymore anyhow.
There's over 106 energy providers in the region that do that, and they do it biannually, so you're gonna combat with that. So I think if you can adopt a no solicitation rule and just let them know that when they get their permission to do that, and the residents would have to then have a no solicitation sticker that you provide, is probably the easiest route. So they wouldn't be able to knock on a door, ring a doorbell if you have the sticker up. That way, you're open to solicitations if you want them, if not, it's just a sticker.
that's a good idea too, yeah.
Versus blanketing that you can't have any solicitations, you'll have to check the solicitor on the legality of that. But
Right.
I think you could put a sign right on your door, no soliciting.
Yeah.
And they can't. Uncle Jerry had that.
Mike?
Yeah, different words.
Sure did, huh?
To go back to the litter and the issue, there's a group called Keep Pennsylvania Beautiful, Shannon Ryder. I'll be glad to contact her for you.
Would you?
She's the president. Matter of fact, she has Verona ties. Her dad used to be the former principal of the Rurity School District. I can't remember his name. Lived on 4th. Anyhow.
No.
England.
No.
I can't.
Roger, now.
So.
That's superintendent.
Carl,
Anyhow.
Carl England.
So, yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, Carl England
Yeah.
lives on 4th. He still does.
Yeah.
So anyhow, they also will provide cameras, the cameras that they put like for game cameras.
Yeah.
Where they can put them, and if it's somebody who keeps going to an area, they'll hide the cameras, they'll take them. They were very successful using that documentation for finding the people who
You'll get,
chronic litter.
you're the contact, or you're going to give me the information?
Whatever you want to do. I mean, I'll be glad to if you are.
Like, do you know this person? I mean, like, yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I'd appreciate that.
Cool.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
And they also organize cleanups too, so it'll be two birds with one stone.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Can I have a motion to adjourn to?
I just got one real quick message from Mark Stanton. Looks like Duquesne Light is up on Ridge now.
All right.
Just an update.
Oh, is that why you're here? You're freezing.
He just sent me a text. They're up there now.
Is this a number 2 comment? Is this a number 2 comment? Excuse me, we have somebody on the floor.
I truly am looking for a response from council tonight. I don't want to wait till after
Okay.
business. I think they're immediate, I don't know. I feel like I've given you enough information. It's something that I think I'd like some feedback on the paving list, the lighting and security cameras within the neighborhood. So if anyone has any thoughts on it, I'm not asking for any promises. I'd just like your thoughts on the things I shared with you tonight.
Well, we are in the process of trying to get cameras from Stevenson Zapala. Yeah, go ahead.
I can read it. So I'm working with Steve Zapala to get cameras for the community. As far as First Street paving, we applied for a grant that the multimodal keeps postponing the meeting to make the decision. The grant would pay for paving on First from north to south. The whole thing would be paved. Now, I don't know off the top of my head if it includes the 600 block. Is that what you're talking about?
Absolutely.
So I would have to check with Matt, our engineer, to verify that. I would imagine if we're doing from north to south that we would do that as well, but I need to check that.
If that goes through, what would the timing be?
This year. It would be this year. And it's like a $500,000 project. Because it's obviously a large street. So that is on our radar. We applied for a grant and we're just waiting to find out whether we got it. And we're working on getting security cameras from Zapala. He felt that it was an easy decision, and his office was willing to pay for the cameras as long as we would maintain them if they needed maintained.
Does he choose the location or you?
It would be between him and the chief. So we would be, and there's different types. We have gotten portable cameras that we can move around from him. And then he's also talking about license plate recognition cameras that would go at Verona Road and Allegheny River Boulevard so that any cars coming from Penn Hills would go through a license plate recognition camera before they entered the community. So those are the things that we're working on. I think that helps some of what you're asking.
As far as timeline for cleanup of that property there, of course, it's February, almost March now. I don't know, when does the borough crew start with outdoor cleanup? Will they take a look at
I believe Mark is going after the landowner of that last unit down there on the right-hand side to clean that hillside up.
both sides of the steps?
Mainly the right side. I did see the left side. There wasn't a whole lot, but I think that's the borough could do that. But the right side going down was very bad. And Mark is going after the homeowner, the landowner on top of the hill. We discussed the other day that I had told you, and I texted you the other day that you responded. I'll keep you informed on that also.
Again, I just want to stress my concern because it's in my neighborhood. I have a 10 and 11-year-old. Drug paraphernalia, open containers, swastika graffiti is not something I had seen when I looked at listings in Verona, and I don't think it should be anything but a priority right now. And someone just remarked in the audience here that kids, I can't take kids as an excuse for someone that would be comfortable enough to put a swastika, yet allow any vandalism on anything within footsteps of my house.
Thank you. Okay, can I have a motion for adjournment to exec session? We don't have to return.
I'll make a motion for adjournment to exec session.
Second. Motion by Mr. Conti, second by Mr. Suchovich. Are there any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.